Campus reform reporter Ophelie Jacobson joins us now to analyze the attacks on the conservative ideology taking place in universities all across the nation. So, Ophelia, Republicans have always been labeled as racist or anything like that. I mean, it happened to John McCain, it happened to Mitt Romney. But does this moment feel like the rhetoric is escalating a little bit?
100%. I mean, this is a growing trend. Just this morning, the Leadership Institute's campus reform received a tip of a student op-ed that was written in a student publication at George Washington University calling for the same ban of Trump officials. We've seen conservative students on college campus be docked and silenced for many years. For example, a group in Texas was threatening conservative students with doxing if they were to join conservative groups on campus. And now Harvard students are taking it to the next level by banning officials, people who have served this great nation, from coming to speak simply because, well, they served under Trump. Keep in mind, this would actually ban Kayleigh McEnany from coming to speak at Harvard University. She attended Harvard Law School. That's her alma mater. She wouldn't even be able to go back and speak.
I mean, we saw something recently similar with Scott Atlas and Stanford, the Hoover Institute there. They don't necessarily, a lot of people are saying that he shouldn't be allowed to return there, speak there, teach there, whatever it may be. But what facilitates these actions? Because, yeah, as you said, it seems like they are ramping up a little bit. Is it because the media doesn't cover attacks against Trump supporters? Is it because college universities don't push back on this stuff? Are people just becoming more radicalized? What is the stemming root of this issue?
It's the petty game of politics that college students have been playing for far too long. Students aren't willing to listen to the other side of the story. They aren't willing to have open and meaningful discussions with people they may not agree with. And, keep in mind that these students, they wouldn't even be able to have these discussions. And they're becoming more and more radicalized because they're only listening to one side of the story and not hearing both sides of the story. And by signing this petition and creating this petition, Harvard students are sending a message that they're not willing to listen and they're refusing to accept anyone that may disagree with what they have to say.
And I think that's symbolic of a larger argument that's taking place here because, for example, it's the same thing on cable news. People go to their desired outlets. They don't hear from the other side. In fact, many networks now don't put anyone from the other side on. You only get what you want to hear, and that's it. Same thing with social media. People follow who they want to follow. They don't like following people who, for example, who have different ideas from them. So we're creating echo chambers, and I think that's very problematic for a number of different reasons. But when it comes to people on college campuses, in the workplace, whatever it may be, are there enough protections to make sure that those people are not discriminated against based on their political affiliation?
There are not enough protections, and Harvard University is the perfect example. Look, Harvard is ranked as the second best national university by some organizations. It's supposed to be offering top-notch education and supporting all of its students, but I find this hard to believe when the student body is creating this petition to ban a certain group of people. And keep in mind that over 73 million Americans voted for President Trump in November. This petition would essentially ban the views of nearly half of the population that voted in the general election. And I'd also like to point out that just a couple of months ago, the husband of Pete Buttigieg, Chasten Buttigieg, was accepted as a fellow at the Harvard Institute of Politics. And one professor called him out on Twitter saying that he didn't even have political experience. Yet these Trump administration officials who do have political experience, they've worked in the administration, they've worked in government, they're the ones that are not allowed to come on campus to speak simply because they worked for Trump.
And I think it's counterproductive, too, because, I mean, it's the old saying, keep your friends closer and your enemies closer. I'm not saying that we should look at each other as enemies, but you should at least know the strategy of the other side. And if you're not willing to talk to them or hear from them or anything like that, I think that's problematic for forming your own argument as well. But when we look at this issue, I think a lot of people do want unity. I think that they're willing to fight for their ideology. They're willing to fight for their values. But at the end of the day, the average person wants civility. What do you think we can do to get to that point?
I think that's a great question. And we've seen in the recent couple of weeks how Joe Biden has been calling for unity among Americans and to come together as one nation. But I find that hard when Harvard University students are creating this petition. Students at George Washington University are writing these op-eds, and even representatives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are creating apparent blacklists of Trump officials. This is anything but unity. If anything, it's only revealing the hypocrisy of the left when they say that they are the tolerant ones. So in order to really come together as a nation to unify, we have to start having these open and meaningful conversations with people who we agree with and also with people who we disagree with. Because how are we supposed to know the other side of the story if we just simply ban them on campus?
And Ophelia, I see even adults doing this. I mean, I'll go on Facebook, for example, and I'll see two people going at it, and it's ad hominem attacks. They're not talking about the idea necessarily. It's you're a Trump supporter, I'm not listening to you. You're a socialist liberal, I'm not listening to you. That's really the arguments that you're seeing a lot of times on social media in particular. But do you think that that starts on college campuses? Do you think that really they get that mentality on these college campuses and they carry it with them through the rest of their life and it's facilitated by the media, things of that nature? Do you think that that's really where it starts?
I definitely think the education and the promotion of having these meaningful discussions starts on college campuses. If college students are willing to create a petition that just bans people that they don't agree with, they think that that's how it's going to be in the real world. And we've seen adults, even on Facebook, block their friends simply for just having different viewpoints. And I definitely think it starts in the classroom with that mentality of you can agree to disagree, but that doesn't mean you have to simply cut off someone that you don't agree with.
And we see that even happening in families. I mean, I've talked to several people and seen different stories that say, you know what, my daughter, for example, won't talk to me right now because of my political affiliation, my support for Trump. So I think that this is getting to a breaking point and something that we do need to address in the near future. And I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight because it's an important issue. It's affecting a lot of people, whether they're on college campuses or they're just on social media. So Ophelie Jacobson, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight and breaking down this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.